Imagine the scene. After an intimate, intense, and connected moment, it doesn't simply turn around and sleeps. On the contrary, he holds you tight, as if, upon releasing, something precious could escape. His hands do not drop his body. His eyes remain closed, but his breath seeks yours, as if the silence between you both said more than any word. And in this simple gesture, many women do not realize what is really happening. There is not only desire, there is activated emotional attachment, a bond that goes far beyond the physical. Deborah Tannen, a linguist and specialist in men and women communication, teaches us that the most silent gestures often carry the deepest meanings. When a man remains glued to his body after sex, he is saying, without saying, that something within him has already connected. That was not just pleasure, it was delivery. The post-love touch is for him an unconscious way to preserve the newly created emotional bond, and this reveals much more than he can admit himself. Such behavior challenges ancient stereotypes that men are cold or move away after pleasure. Tannen argues that male language is often nonverbal, and that such attitudes, to remain glued, to protect with his own body, not to allow the moment to dissipate, reveal an active emotional language. When he holds you like this, it's like saying, "I haven't finished being with you yet," and that says it all. What many women do not know is that the moment soon after sex is one of the most revealing windows of the male mind. This is where masks fall, that shields lower, and that the silent truth of attachment can emerge. If he seeks his skin, his smell, his presence, even after the apex, it is because his brain has already begun to create ties, even if he is not aware of it yet. Deborah Tannen calls this relational communication, and she's powerful. This type of attachment, when authentic, activates specific areas of the brain linked to protection, care, and feeling of belonging. He is not just there because he is comfortable. It is because, emotionally, you have already become a security point for him. The language of the body in this context speaks louder than any "I love you" said from the mouth out. It is the body that confesses what the ego still tries to hide. And that's why you, woman, need to learn to read the signs that he doesn't verbalize. Not every man will look at you in the eye and say that he is clinging, but many will hold you tight after sex. And in this gesture, there is a crude, intense, and deeply revealing truth. If he holds you like this, maybe he's already emotionally arrested to you, and that changes everything. The silent speaking, male body language. Have you noticed that often what he doesn't say reveals more than 1,000 words? Deborah Tannen shows us that men, when emotionally involved, tend to communicate more physically than verbal. This means that even in silence, his body may be shouting truths that his mouth has not yet had the courage to pronounce. And one of these truths appears hard the moment he chooses to keep you in his arms, even after the climax. While some women expect verbal declarations of love or promises for the future, they forget that the most powerful signs are there in the subtlety of the gesture. If he does not turn to the side, if he does not move away, if he seeks your skin as if you need to make sure you are there, all of this reveals a specific type of emotional connection, a silent bond that only activates when involvement goes beyond the physical. Deborah Tannen calls this hidden relational communication. It is the type of language that occurs not to inform, but to maintain the bond. And in this context, his body is the messenger of what he still does not know how to express in words. When he doesn't let you go, it's the emotional equivalent to say, "I don't want it to end." It is important to understand that this behavior is neither mechanical nor casual. It is driven by deeper emotional structures. Post-intimate attachment is a reflection of a brain that has begun to associate you with the idea of emotional security. And this does not happen to anyone, only with those who cross the barrier of superficiality and reach a more intimate level of presence and connection. If you pay attention to this moment, you will find out truths that even he realizes. And that's where you start positioning yourself with more power, because he understands that he is awakening something in him that he does not control, something that speaks of bond, real attachment. And from there, dynamics changes completely. The awakening of affective security. According to Deborah Tannen, every human being consciously seeks for a safe, emotional welcome space. In the case of men, this space is rarely expressed in words, but always manifests itself in actions. And after an intimate mileage, protection and permanence instinct can be a clear sign that it already sees you a sure, rare, and precious port in the male mind. This kind of behavior is often misunderstood by women. Many think that the demonstration of affection after sex is only the result of physical desire still pulsating. But in fact, what is happening is the activation of a denser emotion, the need to prolong the bond. And the simple fact he wants to remain by his side already reveals that something inside him has changed. Deborah Tannen explains that in relationships where there is real emotional attachment, moments of silence after intimacy are the most revealing. They show if man is there for carnal necessity, or if he has already begun to develop an affection that transcends desire. His body glued to his fingers intertwined, the subtle touch even after the climax. All this is affective communication of very high value. It is at this moment that the male brain associates its presence with feelings of emotional reward. You are no longer a momentary experience and turn into a deep connection figure. This is the point where the bond begins to establish itself, even if it does not admit it yet. And this is exactly where many women gain emotional power in the relationship, if they know how to interpret this moment with emotional intelligence. Therefore, do not minimize this moment. He is the thermometer of his emotional evolution. If he stays, if he breathes along with you, if you get you involved as if time has to stop, it's because something internal has already connected, and that something can be the beginning of a love that he has not yet had the courage to name. The attachment that is born in the non-non. Deborah Tannen argues that communication is largely made by implicit layers. What is not said aloud often has more impact than what is said. And in the love field, this is even more evident. The man who remains with you after intimacy, even in silence, is communicating with an intensity that words would never achieve. Many men have difficulty expressing vulnerability. They grew up listening that feelings are weaknesses, that attachment is a sign of loss of control. But the body does not lie. When he can't get away from you, when the hug continues even after delivery, it is because your heart has already begun to form invisible roots, and that, yes, it is attachment in a gross state. This kind of emotional attachment is built without words. It is fed by sensations, the smell of your skin, the feeling of heat, the synchronized breathing. All of this is being emotionally memorized, creating a connection that escapes from rational logic. And that's why, even without admitting, many men come back, seek, insist, because attachment is already activated, even if they don't know how to explain why. Deborah Tannen calls this silent attachment answers. They are automatic reactions, but loaded with meaning. The absence of words is not the absence of emotion. It is actually an excess of it, condensed in gestures. If he holds you after sex, it's not casual. It is emotional answer. It is a need for continuity. It is attachment trying to stabilize. And this is where you need to observe wisely. Because this kind of gesture reveals that he already sees you not as an object of pleasure, but as an indispensable presence. And when this perception sets in, it changes the game. He begins to consider you part of your emotional comfort zone. And this is rare, very rare. When the body speaks what the mouth cannot say, most women were taught to wait for words, by explicit statements of love and future promises. But Deborah Tannen invites us to understand that in communication between men and women, meaning is often between the lines, in the gestures, in seemingly small choices, and among all possible times, few are as revealing as what happens after sex. When he holds you longer, when he doesn't let you go soon, he is prolonging contact because something inside him still doesn't want to say goodbye. It can be unconscious, it can be instinctive, but it is true. His body acts on impulse, seeking to maintain what brought comfort, pleasure, and safety. It's like he said, "I don't want this feeling to end, and not you." This is the kind of language that many men do not even realize they are talking about, but the body responds to the heart before the mind can censor. And at this time, after the moment, when his guard is naturally lower, the touch becomes confession, and silence becomes emotional surrender. It's a moment when he doesn't control, he just feels. Deborah Tannen explains that this body delivery is a type of relational meta-message, that is, a nonverbal way of showing the place you occupy emotionally. And if you occupy the comfort space, warmth of bond, then you have already surpassed the barrier of superficiality. You are no longer just one woman. You are the woman who plays him in depth. When he doesn't let you go, you need to understand that it is being read emotionally for him as a refuge. And men do not release what makes them feel alive. They hold, even without knowing why, what the heart has already decided to keep around. And you can trust it, not in the words, but in the arms that remain. The art of reading what is hiding. In a world where relationships are increasingly shallow, knowing how to identify true emotional attachment becomes almost an art. And this art begins in listening to the body, the intention behind the gesture, what it does when you believe you are not paying attention. Deborah Tannen shows us that the most accurate emotional reading does not come from what is said, but what is done, especially in silence. It is in this silence that you find the biggest clues. It surrounds you, breathes along with you, closes your eyes, and remains. He does not take the cell phone, does not change the subject, does not escape to the bathroom like that, runs away from what has just happened. It remains. And in this permanence, the secret of what he feels lives. Because only where there is some kind of emotional connection. The mistake of many women is to seek answers only in words. But words are easy to mold. The gestures after the apex of intimacy are involuntary. They escape rational control. If he holds you, if he leans his forehead in his, if he smiles without saying anything, this is where true attachment begins to be born. And there you become unforgettable. Deborah Tannen calls this relational markers, moments when the other's behavior signals the value you have in his experience. And there is no lighter marker than the persistent touch after delivery. He is not just prolonging pleasure. He is emotionally validating what has just happened. He is saying, even without knowing, that it was special. Learning to see this completely changes your position in relationships. You stop seeking validation in the speech and begins to realize how much it is already valued in actions. And that changes everything, because you stop doubting what is happening and start commanding with confidence the evolution of this bond. When he holds you, he's already arrested. There's a time when it is no longer necessary to ask what he feels, because his gestures already scream. He holds you after love as who holds something valuable, and often he hasn't yet understood how much you have touched the center of his soul. But the body speaks, and when he speaks, it is impossible not to realize his heart has already begun to be attached to his. Deborah Tannen reminds us that true intimacy goes beyond physical contact. She begins when two bodies share silence without discomfort. When he remains with you, breathing at the same pace, holding his hand or just resting his head on his chest, he is saying, with all his being, that there is already a feeling forming, and true feelings do not fall easily. This is the type of bond that transforms relationships. Because once he begins to associate you safely, emotional pleasure and peace, he can no longer disconnect easily. The rational mind may try to resist, but the body has already surrendered. The attachment is activated, and this puts it in a position of vulnerability. A vulnerability that it only allows for a woman who touches her essence. You need to understand the power that exists in being this woman, the woman he doesn't let go, the woman he holds even after pleasure, the woman he associates with calm, affection, silent love. This is rare, and because it is rare, it's valuable. It's the kind of connection men remember for years, even if life takes them away. So the next time he doesn't let go, don't doubt it. Feel. He may not be saying with words, but his body has already told you everything. And you deserve to know how much it puts you in an effective strength position. If he holds you like this, It's because you're already emotionally arrested to you. Arriving here, you may be feeling something move inside you, a memory, a doubt, or even a silent confirmation of everything that for a long time you have tried to ignore. Because yes, woman, there are times that do not ask for explanations, ask for attention. And when he holds you tight after making love, when it seems that time freezes in his arms, it is exactly the kind of moment before you. Deborah Tannen has shown us that relationships are not built on major statements, but in small continuous gestures, silences loaded with meaning, in breaks that say stay a little more. And that's where, exactly, that the true value of an emotional connection lives. How many times have you doubted what he felt for not hearing the words he expected? How many times have looked at the phone waiting for a message without realizing that the night before he hugged you as if the whole world had disappeared? It is because you, like so many women, were taught to trust the spoken language, not in the language felt. But Deborah Tannen teaches us the opposite. The most authentic communication happens when the body assumes the speech that the heart has not yet learned to verbalize. And if he holds you, if he keeps you around when everything could have been over, so what you have already started to root, even if he still doesn't know how to appoint what he feels, this silent attachment, this binding that grows in the non-rare and most dangerous for those who do not know how to recognize it. Because he may be loving you the way his way, deeply, intensely, and you may be losing it by waiting for him to say what he is already showing. It is not about accepting crumbs. It is a matter of realizing when the man by his side is, even without realizing it, fighting his own vulnerability. And you, a woman, have the power to transform this intimate space into a safe place where he gradually allows himself to be true. Because every man who holds a woman after sex is, at some level, for fear of losing her. And no man is afraid of losing what he doesn't feel. So now it's with you, not to question what he says, but to observe what he does, not to charge signs, but to learn to recognize them when they arrive discreetly but genuine. The woman who knows how to read the body of a man, who understands what the continuous touch means, the aligned breathing, the arm that does not loose even after all, is a woman who sees beyond. You have this gift. It's on you. And from today, maybe something change. Maybe you feel more, blaming yourself less, valuing yourself more, because you know clearly that when it doesn't let you go, it is because emotionally he is already stuck, and that, it changes everything. If this content has awakened something to you, share it. Let's create a space here in the comments where other women can also recognize this moment in their stories. Comment, I felt it, if you have already lived something like. Enjoy the video, not only because it has touched something intimate, but because it can play other women who do not yet know the value of what they feel. And subscribe to the channel, because here, each theme is treated with the depth you deserve, with the respect your emotions require. This is a space where the woman not only hears, she recognizes herself, and never accepts less than it deserves.